Welcome to Inside the Upside Down, the Edge of the Rabbit Hole after show. I'm Mike Ricksecker, author and historian. With me is our chat Shananigator, Shana Wankel. And we are talking tonight about hunting down haunted history, or in other words, how to research the paranormal. So this is a really interesting topic for both Shana and I because we love paranormal research. So just a couple things real quick. So the intro music was The Mirror from Rio from Firesphere. We have not yet made a decision on the music for this show. So this is 4 weeks in a row now with 3 of the pieces of music, and just haven't had a chance to really make a decision yet, Shana. But they're all good pieces of music. So,
yeah, I really like them.
Yeah. So, and have to thank Shana, our chat Shananigator, for that, because she does all the booking of the bands for Enigma Underground Radio, which is our music station that we have here at Haunted Road Media. And that's a big part of what she does. She makes those connections. And this one with Firesphere has been fantastic because Rio is scoring music for our videos. So it's awesome. All right. So haunted history. Like I said, this is a topic that Shana and I really enjoy talking about. And what you're going to experience tonight is basically a bastardized version of a presentation that I used to give. I started doing more of the shadow person presentations. This one I ended up morphing into the history of the paranormal working relationship, where I talked about a lot of different experiences at different historic haunted locations, and then I got into like nuts and bolts. And so this is the nuts and bolts of it. And while usually with Inside the Upside Down, we're talking more getting inside different supernatural phenomenon, this is a big part of what we do when we're investigating as Society of the Haunted. Is we do a lot of historic research. So we're going inside the upside down of historic research. And Shana, I guess it's kind of prescient because you were recently doing just today, some historic research. And I know you were having a bit of a tough time because, small town, small area, and the resources are not all there. But in this, we will cover some of those different resources. And I know Shauna's probably, at the first couple, you're probably going to be glaring at, my county doesn't have that shit. But, you take what you can get. So just depending on your location, some resources are going to be there and others aren't. So it just, sometimes you really got to, dig deep because your locale may not have everything. So feel free, of course, to, throw questions in there about paranormal research or, anything else that you may have. And, Shana, any opening words that you want to say on the paranormal research aspect of what we do? Because to me, it's one of the most important parts of what we do.
It's definitely important because it's not fair to the spirits that we're investigating. It's not fair to these historical places to lie and to not have the actual facts. I mean, yeah, it makes good television, but in reality, the truth needs to be out there, and the only way to really do that is to research and fact check.
Yep. And by the way, your connection got better. While you were scratchy at first, it kind of cleared up a little bit. So right before we went live, Shauna's connection just suddenly crapped out. So
we had some ice today, and Frontier sucks on its own without any help, but if the weather is bad, it's even worse.
Yeah. So Shana may be in and out a little bit. Donna Gordon did remark that she's having a hard time hearing you, but it did get better on my end. So, and Donna's down there to shenanigate the chat. So thank you, Donna. Yeah.
I've got it turned all the way up, so.
Yep.
Turn it up any higher than that.
It's about as good as we're going to get it, and we're going to roll with it. So, just right off the bat, Patrick, I guess we'll handle this question before we dive into the practicals. So he says, I have a question about hauntings. Are apartment buildings perfect for hauntings? Well, I mean, there's certainly, with all the people that are in and out, sure, that could be an amplifier for paranormal activity, just, by the sheer number of people. The one thing that it would be a detriment to me, because yeah, you have the volume, you have the quantity of people, is that a lot of times in apartment buildings, people don't necessarily build those attachments to the building like they do maybe a single family home. So what do you think, Shana?
I have to agree, because a lot of apartment buildings have high turnover. So, like me personally, I haven't grown an attachment to this place. I can say there are places that I'm attached to. When you finally settle into a place that you want to spend the rest of your day in, that's where you're going to leave all of your energy at.
Right.
I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, you may have some people who, live there 10 years or 15 years or what have you. But, yeah, there's a high turnover, too. So, kind of depends. So, yeah. Candy is saying, we shouldn't get that started again on Frontier. So, yeah, Frontier. Fucking Frontier. All right. Yeah. So, and for Fungi, you got Frozen. So you're kind of like hiccupy for me, but we'll just continue to roll with it for now. Shauna's going to be in and out, apparently. So, okay. Haunted history. So, researching. This is kind of a big area for us, is doing the research. And a lot of people ask, okay, where do I get started? And what I tell people is my first order of business is always with the county assessor, just getting the basics of the house or building or whatever it is. They're going to have, tax information. They're going to have year that it was built. They're going to have owner. They might have some photographs, and it really depends on the county how much information they may have. So this is actually a good example of a assessor's page that has quite a bit of information, because they do have the year that it was built. They have information about how the structure is laid out. They have a couple of photographs that are attached. They have the owners listed. You can't see all of them here because you can only fit so much on the page. But if you were to continue to scroll down, you would see everybody who had owned it from the time that the property was first parceled out. So that's actually a really good one, because they have all that information. And one of the great things about having that kind of information, especially with the owners, is once you start getting some names attached to the property, that's a big part of your research, is knowing who was there, not just when it was built. So, okay, you get an idea of how old it is and the type of people that may have been in and out of there. But once you start getting some names, now you can start doing searches on those. Okay, now some assessor's office may have some GIS information. So this is looking at a particular neighborhood, and on this page you can actually, if you were to go to the site, this is just a photograph of it, you could actually click on these individual parcels and get information about that particular property. So if you don't necessarily know the property address, but you know where the house is resting, this might be a good idea. Or you could even use it if you're trying to get information about the neighborhood, about who may all have lived in this particular area. Like if you have a story about the neighbors were also involved in whatever went on at the house, well, you can go get information about the neighbors because it's boom, just click on it and go right into it. So it's a nice setup for those counties that have that particular information available. Again, it depends. And Mama Joe Buffalo Woman. So Joni Mitchell is asking for Canada too. Again, that's I'll come pop back here. That depends on Canada. I haven't done a lot of that type of research in Canada because I haven't had a lot of Canadian cases. In fact, I've had 0 Canadian cases. So I can't speak for that. But a lot of the other things that I'm going to talk about would be relevant to Canada. As far as the type of records available online up there, I don't know. So, and then last one for the assessor's office is another one with this one. This was actually Oklahoma County in Oklahoma. They do a pretty good job, actually. They may have documents out there that you can check out. So this is a quick claim deed at a particular property. And so you can actually, in some of these places, you can actually go into the documents and look at them and see the actual transactions that were made. And there may even be additional information attached, other names as well. So, there could be some great information out there at the assessor's office, possibly online. Now, some places you may have to go to the clerk's office. It may not be available online. You actually have to physically go down there. But for those that are available online, it's a fantastic resource. And Shana, I'm sorry, got a little scratchy in my voice. I know that you are having some troubles out there in a small town. So if your connection is okay, maybe you can speak to a couple of challenges there in a smaller town.
They don't really too much on their website. Like there's the basic information, like their location, and it'll give you all these, teasers, like this is available, like, if you get the bus or 4 o'clock in the evening, then you're out of luck unless if you want that website. There's other websites that you can use that you have to, subscribe to pay for, to view this, to see that, stuff like that. And I prefer to go a free route if at all possible. I mean, who wouldn't? So,
right.
But yeah, there's, I don't know. There's so much history, in this area, and just today, someone just locally, that I know said, "Hey, how would I find out who died in my house?" And I was like, "Well," and then I looked at the clock. It's like, well, there's really not much that I'm going to be able to do about it now because that office is closed. But the first place you should start,
right?
Is at the assessor's office. You're going to find out who all has owned the property from, as far back as it'll go, and some of them go back until like the late 1800s. Some of them will go back before that. So you can go all the way back. And then.
Right.
Super
chat from Tom McNicholas, $10 for spooky research is what he says. Thank you very much, Tom. Appreciate that. That will actually help very much with spooky research.
Yeah, and actually this would be a good private residence case for us.
Yeah.
One of the people that lives in the house, they're seeing a lot of activity. They've been seeing a lot of it for 2 years. They've never done any research on the place. But the woman that she's actually a friend of mine, her husband woke up with a finger in the air and he was alone. So, that's interesting. And then there's also a child spirit in the home too. So, and she's within walking distance of me, of course. So, but I told her, yeah, definitely, start at the assessor's office, or you can go, if you want to, if you have the time, research at the library. I mean, even the small libraries will have books, that will tell the entire history, of your town or your county. or whatever, and there's some like gems in there, stuff that, you know, it could be just like like a letter somewhere to somebody, and then you'll see a name in there, and boom, you know, there's another, you know, path to go down. Well,
Right.
who's this person? What happened? And then you can look that up, and then you're like, oh, well, here's another, you know. So research is so, I mean, you can really, it's very fulfilling, very rewarding, you know. I mean, you can really, you know, it's like putting a puzzle together.
Yeah, it really is. You know, to me, it harkens back to my mystery writing. To me, it's all a mystery, and so it's like a puzzle that you're trying to put together. Bree Jones, Canadian $2 super chat. Thank you very much, Bree. Absolutely appreciate it again. But yeah, to me, it's a mystery. You're trying to put those pieces together and deduce what really happened. And the more resources that we have available to us, the better we can paint that picture. So let me get into a couple more here. So I have like this whole laundry list. And Jen, $10 super chat. Thank you, Jen. Yeah, Jen also did, I think it was $10 on Edge of the Rabbit Hole as well. So guys, thank you for supporting both shows. That is absolutely appreciated that you guys are doing that. So, so let's go back to another one that I absolutely love are the historic maps. And so, and I actually have those reversed. This one needs to go on top of that one. So one is a bird's eye view that's of Baltimore. The other is a historic map of that's Mansfield, Ohio. And so with this, you get
Patrick.
And there's Patrick, $5 super chat. Thank you, Mike and Shana and Vanessa, for the amazing content. Your show helps me get through sleepless nights when my chronic pain keeps me up all night. Well, you're very, very welcome, and thank you for the $5 super chat. Yeah, it's very heartwarming, and Patrick wrote the sweetest letter last year about that, and so it just, like I said, it's very heartwarming, the appreciation, and we appreciate you as a guest, as a listener. So, yeah, so I love the historic maps. With the Baltimore one, you can actually get a view of the buildings, the layout, the way things were constructed back then. It may not be exact, but it's a very good representation. That's actually, the Baltimore map is one that we actually hunted down in Old Ballpark years ago, and we found the area where it was at, but we got lost in the city. We actually used that map to find our way out of the city because a lot of the streets are still the same. So it's a map from 1870. The one of Mansfield, Ohio there, I would use to actually track down some family. And you can actually see J. Ricksecker right in the middle there. And what's great about these, and a lot of municipalities, states, counties have these type of maps where you can actually see the owners of the land. So these are the old like land plat maps, and it shows you who owned it. So it's another way in which you can track down names of people who lived in the different areas. So if you're looking at a particular property, you can actually dig into some of the older maps. If you know it was built in say 1880 or what have you, you can actually dig up the old land plats and find out who owned it over time. So even if the assessor's office only has the current owner, but because it should have it on there in the assessor's office, the actual date that the house was built, if you know the date, you can go back to those old land plat maps and find out some of the owners' names and just start rolling with those. So that's a potential resource there, are those old maps. So Neither Shadow saying, love for supporters of HRM. Yes, we have much love for our supporters. Absolutely. And Don makes an observation. Here in Kentucky, they tend to name county roads or country roads after the landowners who owned many acres in that area. And that's true of a lot of areas. I know, like Shana, that one road over there by Rose Hill Cemetery is named Allen Road, and the last names of some of the owners over there were Allen that farmed the land. So, and Shauna's nodding her head. So, we don't know how her sound is doing because it's kind of been in and out.
I'm sure it's.
Yeah, it's okay. Some people can hear you, some people can't. So, we'll keep going. So, those are the historic maps, which I love. And also, what I love are the old newspaper archives. So this highlights a number of different things that I had previously researched. So a man dies in hotel plunge. That's the Skirvin Hotel. Guthrie Matron and her children. That's the Stone Line Inn. Father's right to kill is upheld. Was an interesting historic case there in Oklahoma. So there's a lot of these two couples nuptials read in Dallas City. That one's that was a private residence case that we did. So once you have some names, you can start plugging them into different newspaper archives and see if there's any news or highlights about some of the different people. So it might be an obituary. It might just be a little piece of information about maybe they were part of an organization. Like my grandfather's in the paper, all the time back in the day for being a part of the head of the stamp clubs and stuff like that. So there's a lot of information you can glean out of the newspaper articles. And Shana, there's a case that we've been working on that I hope we're able to follow up on a little bit, maybe Saturday morning, that Clark Evans, where we found in the newspapers, we didn't say anywhere else listed where he was buried, but we found in like on one little line in a newspaper somewhere that the cemetery that he was buried at. So I know you tend to like digging through those as well.
Yeah, I think that I am pretty sure the town did not bury him in with the recruiting population.
Right.
I'm sure that he's going to be, mashed off to the side somewhere, and we're lucky if it's marked. But I think he's going to be in, like, the wooded area. I don't really feel like, I'll be surprised. If he's buried with everybody else, it's going to be on one of those stones that you can kind of do a grave rubbing to get it in.
Yeah, so that's something that we're following up with is, whether or not, and we wanted to go during a cooler month because, Shana kind of got the feeling that his grave is kind of off on the side of the cemetery somewhere in the brush. So if there's an actual marker, we may not have been able to see it when we went out there. And it might be, if we're going to try to go back here pretty soon, it might be that, once the shrubbery is down, which it is right now, we may be able to see it if there's a marker. Could also be that there is no marker. Maybe it's an unmarked grave, or it could even be one of those that have been weathered away in that cemetery. Probably not, because those are mixed in with everybody else. So another part of researching could be we actually have to go to, and this is a cemetery that's adjoined with a church. We may need to go into the church office and ask them, hey, we have a newspaper account that says he's buried here. What do your records show? And they do keep, of course, a record in their offices of everybody that's buried in the cemetery and the actual plots. So that may bear fruit for us if we're able to go. Kind of depends on how the weekend works. If it's this particular weekend. So, okay, so everybody's kind of talking about the clippings that I showed. I'll show those again real quick here. So, and Fungi said it was a macabre collection. Yeah, so these newspapers, okay. So, I'll say bottom left, despondent city resident in suffering with rifle. That was actually a newspaper article that was dug up for the case that we did for The Haunted. So that when I talk about that case and I talk about the father of the homeowner who committed suicide in the house, in the room in which the daughter slept in, well, that's the newspaper article about it, about when he committed suicide. So the guy there, that is an actual mummified corpse of David E. George, who may or may not have been John Wilkes Booth, if you believe the conspiracy theory that John Wilkes Booth escaped from Virginia and headed out west and continued to live his life. So, and then you see some others that are just, I mean, you got obituaries, and the fishing trip one is the Belle Isle area. So, I mean, they're all parts of, you know, research that I've done over the years for different cases and writing my books. So, there are also online articles. You know, of course, everybody knows Google. Google is your friend. And that may actually be, you know, that may be where you start. You know, it's kind of simple. Just, you know, pop a couple of names into Google and see what you get. So, you know, and Shana, I know you know, that you kind of agree with that. Okay, just, you know, very quickly, you know, it's easy. It's online. What do you get initially? You know, so Google's your friend? Yes?
Yeah, Google is your friend. That's what I tell my parents all the time. They'll call them, they'll ask me a question like, Google is your friend. Just ask Google.
Yeah.
If Google doesn't know the answer doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it may even pop up to a newspaper article you may not be able to, you know, readily see, but now you know it exists. You can, you know, however you need to gain access, you may be able to find it. So so the online articles, of course, you know, plenty of information there if you happen to come across it. The one is on the Samuel Mudd house that I covered. That was in the Baltimore Sun, and the others, I like it. Ghosts haunt New York Knicks at Skirvin Hotel. So the New York Knicks were scared out of their hotel room by the ghosts of the Skirvin Hotel. I always found that one humorous. So another place that people tend to forget about because it's the digital age are library sources. Yes, your library has resources. You can go to it and find those resources. But better yet, many libraries today have online resources where you don't actually need to go into the library itself. You just need a library card and you get into their website. A lot of libraries have electronic resources on their website. You just type in your account number and your PIN number associated with your library card, and boom, you can get to all these different online resources. So this one at Howard County Library, I used to work at that library system. It's showing Heritage Quest. So they have all kinds of different things you can search here: census, books, things on the Revolutionary War, U.S. serial set, all kinds of different things. So you know, use your libraries. I know, Shana, you go to the library for a lot of different things, and that's where, you know, you had found some historic books that gave us a lot of great information. So, you know, tell us about your library. I know it's a small one, but you were still able to find some good information there.
Yeah, this the local library, they have a lot of older books. I mean, not just, you know, that tells the history of the town or the history of the county, but then there's books that were written by, or that have articles and letters and stuff by the individual, like the main, you know, families that were dominant in the area. There's a lot of, like, old picture books that shows, you know, buildings from, you know, that some aren't even around anymore, or that there are other things, right? You know, they got turned into other things. And then, you know, there's all kinds of, I'll go in there, you know, expecting to just be in there for a few minutes, and like 2 or 3 hours later, I'm like, what have I been doing? You know, it's so easy to get, you know, sucked up.
Oh yeah.
Going to a library for me is almost like time travel. I mean, it's like some of the places, that we investigate in, it's like reality doesn't exist anymore. It's just, when I go to the library, I set myself an alarm now because I know what time to go home.
You and your alarms, and, yeah.
If I didn't do that, I would forget everything around me. So,
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot. Go ahead.
You were mentioning the Samuel Mudd house. Remember, my cousin Tammy is dating
right.
the Ancestors.
Yeah, direct descendant. His last name is Mudd. Direct descendant, which I thought was very cool because I've had that connection there to the Mudd house for years. I mean, there's a number of crazy things that happen to me there each time that I've gone. So, yeah, to be able to interact with a direct descendant like that. And there are direct descendants that actually work there, but this was somebody a little closer to our age and actually had that last name because the people that are actually working there at the Mudd house, I think they must have come through another line. They're direct descendants, but don't share the same last name. So it's pretty interesting. So, but yeah, library, another thing, yeah, you have the online resources, you have the books, but there's other resources there. Like we were talking earlier about the historic maps. Well, a lot of that stuff is there too. So you can find those maps there as well that you may not find online, or that may even be different than, say, like your county clerk's office. So your county clerk's office, should have all the original land plats and all that, but there may be some historic maps that were done by others that your library may have. So always a good resource. So we continue on because there's a lot of different resources here. You were talking about old books, and I think we could probably jump to that. I'll skip over these others for now, and we'll go to historic books since you were talking about that. Oops, that's historic photos. Historic books is this one. Okay. So, yeah, you can find a lot of great old history and stories in some of these books. And, Shana, I remember the one that you had picked up there had that. It basically said the haunted house, and it was talking about the Lee Baker Hodges house there in Carrollton, where, the story that was written over 100 years ago, it was already calling it the haunted house. And so I found that really, really interesting, and was giving us, insight into more details of the story. And that's something I found fascinating about some of these older books is that, today we have some details about some of these stories. Might be a little scant, might have been changed over time. And in the retelling that happens, that things get lost, things get taken out, some things get changed a little bit. So you go back into these older books, and you're finding, hey, there's some more information here. There's some more details. Oh, this is the way it really happened, not that way. And so I found that very interesting because we did like a quick search, I think, online of, okay, what does it show on their site and their information? It's like, okay, there's some of the stuff, but it's not all of it. This book has a lot more. So I found that really interesting. The one that I have up here. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can hear myself cutting out. As I say, another good resource is the elderly people in your community. They may have newspaper clippings of their own have gotten lost through time, old letters, old photos, old books, and stories that were never documented at all.
Yeah, that's an excellent.
Maybe just from their memory.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. You may not be able to hear her because she was breaking up a lot, and some of you, when she gets a little bit lower, have kind of been missing that. Shana was talking about talking to the older generation, the older people within the community, that they're going to have stories from back then. They may have some old books of their own. They may have old photographs of their own. When we were researching on the Campsville grade school, it was the guy. What was his name? Marcellus? Down the street or down the hill from your parents' house? I'm sorry?
Maurice.
Maurice. That was close. Marcellus, Maurice. Close. Yeah, Maurice. He was showing us some photos that he had in old yearbooks from the school that had photos of the area at that time. So that's what Shauna's talking about there, even though you couldn't hear her too well. So Sean Oldsmiths asks real quick, what is the oldest book you've seen? Okay, that's a good question. Would you consider a scroll a book? Because I have physically handled a 600-year-old Megillah scroll. So if you consider that a small book, that would be the oldest. If not, I currently have on the shelf over here a book from 1864. So, Shauna, oldest book you've seen? I think she's disconnected at the moment. I hear static, but she's not moving. So, all right. So we'll continue on. So B3 Airspace scrolls or books. So yeah, I physically handled a 600-year-old Megillah scroll. Which was actually very cool. That was at a library too. So there you go. Libraries are your friend. So with this particular one, this is the story of Ariana Calvert, which I've talked about a number of different times. This was featured in my book, Ghosts of Maryland. And where this came from, I had found somewhere online just a little one-liner in looking up, it was the Mount Airy Plantation. And it was just a little one-liner of, there was a ghost of a girl who was forlorn over losing the love of her life. That was it. So in doing research, historic research for the book, in this book, Colonial Mansions of Maryland and Delaware, which was published in 1914, so over 100 years ago, a little less than 100 when I wrote Ghosts of Maryland. But in this, I found her entire story about how she was in love with this boy. The boy wanted to call on her. The father said no. The father did not like him. Ariana grew very, very depressed over this, and in order to try to get her to stop thinking about the boy, her father sent her away to her sisters in Annapolis. Well, her sisters kept bringing in suitors for her. Well, she didn't want any of these other guys. She just wanted this boy that she was in love with back home. And her depression grew even greater and greater and greater until the point where she started getting sick. And at some point, her father died. Her mother took pity upon her, brought her back home, but it was already too late by then. She was too sick from being so depressed, and she herself passed away. So all of that within this book, before I just found just a little one-liner online. So old books are your friends. Shauna, do we have you back yet?
I have no idea.
There we go. Heard you that time. All right. So we'll just say fucking Frontier.
I'm going to write a letter.
Yeah. They picked the wrong time to start being shitty.
I'm going to write a letter and I'm going to get a bunch of signatures.
Yeah, because that's just... Come on. I mean, we're just talking a basic connection here, Yeah, I think... this isn't, 1996 or something. So, all right. So, talked about library. Okay. So, Census Records. Let's talk about that real quick. So, another great resource is our Census Records, where you can find out a little bit more about the family, about who may have been in the household, just because of the way they would have to list different things. So you would list head of household, anybody that was within the household. You could find out different names of dates of, people that were, when they were, not necessarily when they were born, but there may be an occupation there. You could find out some information about like a good example is Stone Line Inn, the Houghton Mansion, where there's this little girl that's listed in the census records, but that's the only bit of information that we have on her. So she's not in. And thank you for the hearts down there in Periscope. Appreciate that. So she's not in the family photograph that's a few years later. And of course, you're trying to track down who's the little girl in the house. And so it's possible it could have been her. We don't have a death record or anything, but she's there in the census. So who is she? Don't have a birth record, don't have a death record. We just have this bit of information. She was there. So it's something to go on. And so Census Records can help you try to pinpoint. We also found when we were doing the Minnellis for at Rose Hill Cemetery, we were trying to track them down and where they were at along the way, and we had discovered that for a period of time they were in Kansas. So we didn't really know why, but we could try to kind of track where the family was moving to at different points in time.
Me? Can you hear me?
I hear you.
There was a death family here just right before the new year.
There was what right before the new year?
One from the Manila family.
Totally broke up. So Donna Gordon says, Donna Gordon says, per Robert, the final frontier, these are the voyages, the internet catastrophes. Yeah, because Shana's frontier is being ridiculous. So, yeah, all I heard was Manelian end of year, and I think you said death somewhere in there.
Someone from that family died recently.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, I found the article whenever I was researching Springfield today.
Wow. Well, that's sad. That's sad. Bree Jones asked, can you go back a census, Mike, or birth record? What do you mean by go back? So the way they do the census records, at least here in the United States, every 10 years they do the census. Now, they're only available to the public up to a certain point in time. I think right now they're available up to 1940. But prior to that, but after that, they're from like 1950 and on, they're not accessible. And that's because a lot of the people are still living. And so I guess once we hit, 2020, then maybe those records will become available. So the birth records, kind of the same deal. Now, a good resource for finding some of this stuff, Heritage Quest, like I showed on the library site, it has the census records, but another one, and of course this is one you have to pay for. So there are some resources that if you want to use them, you have to pay for. Would be, and I clicked the wrong one. No, because I had that on. Well, it must be this one then. Nope. I didn't grab the right photo. Hang on a second here, people. That's supposed to be historic photos, which we haven't talked about yet. So it's this one. There we go. And that's Ancestry. So Ancestry.com does have a lot of access. If you pay, you have to pay for the subscription. And you can do a 14-day free trial, I think it is, and just cram to get as much as you want out of it. But yeah, they have a lot of great information out there. They have the census records, they have birth and death records, they have military records out there, a lot of different things. Of course, users have posted their own family trees out there. So if there's a chance you are related to somebody else, that has posted information out there. You may be able to grab some information about your family through them. So, you know, that's what I've used it for. You see, the photo that's there is of my family back in the 1800s. This was actually the family that was in Mansfield. The old guy right in the middle is that J. Ricksecker that was listed on that old map. But I found that through Ancestry. So there's, you know, some interesting information that you can get out here. You see a death record that's there and what have you. So again, it's something you have to pay for to be able to access that, but there is a lot of good information out there, but also some parts of it you have to take with a bit of a grain of salt, because if you're going into any like family tree records that somebody has put together, well, that's a user on there. They might not have all their information right, so you need to double check the sources of where they got that from. So it's always another thing is double check. So per Tom Nicholas, thank you, Donna, for shenanigating in the chat. Per Tom Nicholas, does the library have research on paranormal in places? Well, that's a good question. So they very likely have some information, although they may not have like a quote-unquote paranormal section or what have you. Now, the Dewey Decimal System, the way that, you know, books are put out in the library, there is like a, you know, supernatural, mind and body, religion. It's all in that section together. So if you walk into a library and you go to that stack of books, you will usually find, you know, some paranormal ghost stories, stuff like that. That's where you would find any of my books if they happen to be in a library, which I know the libraries in Maryland carry Ghosts of Maryland, and ones in Oklahoma carry the Oklahoma book, and what have you. So that's where you would find those. Now, something we needed to mention with the newspaper, Shana, is because this is something you'd be able to find. Okay, a lot of libraries have newspaper archives, and Shana, we just did a video on it, a couple of them, where we were getting ghost stories out of the newspapers, the old newspapers that you had stumbled across.
You're not going to be able to hear me. Everything is frozen up on my end.
I actually heard you say that very well, but you are frozen, yes.
I don't want to hear every other word come out.
It's lousy. Well, this is really too bad because, you know, this is kind of like our forte between you and I is doing the research. And so for you to have this crappy connection is really it's really a travesty here. So, yeah, there have been times where, and I remember this distinctly, where we were doing research on the Campbellsville grade school in Shauna's old hometown, and oh my gosh, I don't remember how late we stayed up. And, you know, I was here in Ohio, Shauna's, you know, at her house in Illinois, and we kept talking about how it's getting late, we need to go to bed, but we stumble across another piece of information, and we keep going, and we're like, it's getting late, we gotta go to bed. We stumble across another piece of information and keep going. You know, it was kind of funny, but you know, so that's why this is kind of really sad about her connection, is because that's our thing. And yeah, like Patrick says, fucking Frontier. So, all right. So, okay, so that's Ancestry. And there's other ones too, like Heritage Quest and some others. A great one that is a free resource that we use all the time is FindAGrave. So there's a lot of information you can get at FindAGrave. Of course, you can discover where people are buried at, but you can also find information about relationships with other people. So, like this one, I mean, this is of Edgar Allan Poe's mother-in-law. It's also his aunt, so go figure that one. But you can see some of the different connections it lists there of other people that are within the FindAGrave system. So, you know, I've used this to find out, again, it was a genealogy thing, but there were some people that were buried around my ancestors' site, the family plot at Lakeview Cemetery in Cleveland, and it was like, okay, who are these other people? And so I was able to find some of those connections. And one of them was a little boy. Okay, who's the little boy? And actually, the death record was attached to it, which was kind of interesting. But you can also see links here to Westminster Burial Ground, so you can information about the actual cemetery itself. And sometimes you'll actually even get write-ups and snippets of history within the record as well. So B.D. Flint, FindAGrave with a big heart. It's love FindAGrave. So Shay Carroll, hope you do the topic again. We'll do it again because I would really would have loved to have more input from Shana on this. So she's still kind of frozen there, which is Ether Shadow Frontier, go to hell and freeze yourself. Yes. Yeah. So this is like perfect topic for Shana, and I hear it scratching, but that's about it. And Bree Jones, they have a lot of history research. Absolutely. FindAGrave is fantastic. And what's funny about FindAGrave is they haven't really updated the look and feel of the website. It still looks like it's 10 or 15 years old. But the amount of information that they have within it is amazing. It keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's really taken off. So another would be historic photos. I know I flashed this up there real quick a little bit ago by accident. But this is another one that you can get from your library or even, like online, or Historical Society. We'll have a lot of historic photos. So these are historic photos of Belle Isle area. So on the right is the old amusement park, and then, even the top one is a old postcard of the amusement park. And then it was later, bought out by the power plant because they wanted the power facility there that the amusement park had, which also ran the trolley line at the time. And then they built a major power plant there. And now it's actually a strip mall, so go figure that. But so historic photos can show you, the way things used to look in a particular area. So, and I did a bad job of overlaying this when I grabbed it, but you can see how big that lake is in the right-hand picture when it was set up as the amusement park. It is nowhere near that big now. It is like just little strip of water back behind the shopping center. So it's really changed over the years. But you can get an idea of the way everything used to look back then. It also gives you an idea of the layout, how things are situated. You might even be able to find in old photos other buildings that had been there that are no longer. So you may be able to cross-reference on those older buildings, and now Shana just completely bombed out. So I guess we're gonna have to finish without her. That's lame. Okay, I'll close that off. Damn. All right. So, Ether Shadow, I hope they do this topic again. Shadow's a really good researcher and knows the ins and outs. Absolutely. So it's really a shame. So, Beat 3 Aerospace. Shame Shana can't get Cox or something else. Yeah, this is the only thing available around her. They have some other like third-party alternatives that it's almost like a local. It's like local Wi-Fi internet, which I'm not sure how all of that works. Even though I'm a technology guy, I should know how it works. But the issue I saw with it is like the available highest speed is like not near where Frontier is. So I don't know. It's just her options are limited because she's out in the middle of nowhere. Why can't internet providers get their shit together? So she has popped into the chat. So Chat Shananigator is in the chat. All right. So we'll just do it like that. And, Shana, maybe you can comment down there. We will definitely bring you back for this topic again. Let's see. What else do I have after the historic photos? I think it had websites. So yeah, the actual websites of the locations themselves. So, you know, here, Civil War Medicine Museum, Belvedere Mansion. So the actual locations themselves, if you're doing a historic site, should have information, of course, about themselves, so you can get it from there. Usually with historic locations and the history that they provide, to me, I usually see it as a starting point. You know, they'll have good, accurate information, but a lot of times it's just a piece of it. You know, it's kind of like the highlights of what's happened and what's gone on there, but it definitely gives you a place to start. So definitely, if you're doing a historic location, see what they have first, and then start, you know, developing your research investigation off of that. So yeah, and so that is really all of the slides that I had, which not really slides. I took them from my slide presentation. It took me forever to find it. And kind of got lost along the way. So what is this? Tim showing a rate Shana 15 out of 10 and Mike 15 out of 10. Well, thank you. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. Yeah. Zippy, go kick Frontier in the butt, Shana. Yeah. Bree Jones is taking off. Thank you, Bree. Appreciate that. Yeah, any connection is good when it works. True. If it works. All right, so that is essentially what I have for researching the paranormal, how to research it. And not, it's more of like the tools. You know, that is a tool set. You know, all those different resources. And I'm starting to lose my voice. You know, and to me, no investigation is complete without doing that. You know, I've taken the stance for a while now that I prefer to know those things going into an investigation. But even after the fact, we're still researching, we're still discovering more. You know, it's never done, it's never over, because we don't know all of what's happened there. We can't possibly ever know all of what's happened there, but there may be more information available to us to be able to research and to find out more. So, you know, there may be, you never know, there may be something you come across at a particular location. You know, maybe it's a name, maybe it's, you could stumble across, you know, somebody's name scratched in a wall somewhere, or a piece of paper that's discovered that has people's names on it, you know, a date scratched in somewhere, or, you know, maybe while you're doing research, you uncover something that's just been lost to time. And that's something I really enjoy about doing all this is, you know, finding those pieces, those little nuggets that nobody's talked about for years and years and years. Like we were talking about, you know, the books. And I think the books are really a gold mine because over time, the books either get lost, you know, and I mean lost, not like, you know, just, you know, lost in the dirt somewhere or whatever, but they get forgotten about. They end up on a dusty shelf somewhere and nobody cares to look at them anymore. So those stories that are within there get lost in that sense. And that's when Shana and I talk about getting lost to time, those stories getting lost to time, people getting lost to time, where we're at investigations and we're talking about, you know, trying to give these spirits their voices back, because those stories are just, they might be in that book somewhere. And so uncovering those, to me, those have like a lot of the details of those locations that are just gone because nobody cared enough to continue to pass that on. Or in some cases, the history books, you know, they can only choose, you know, so many things to continue to pass on. So they choose this item, this item, this item, and, you know, they nix the others because they only have so much room to put in, you know, the next book, the next edition. Kind of the crazy thing about history is we keep gaining more of it, right? So I saw some, Mike Tom wants you to PM some of those links, which I will do, certainly. So, yeah, I'll definitely do that. So like FindAGrave, Ancestry, all that's got it. But some of the other things, like the county assessor's office, okay, you'll have to search that one on your own because every county has a different site. The books, some of them you can find online actually, because there are enough historic books that have been, like there's the Gutenberg Project. Google's put a lot of those historic books online, but others you're going to have to go to your local library and find those. But some of the others, yeah, I can definitely give you some links for sure. Yeah, Shana, Frontier is bad everywhere. It's funny, people that are coming across this that are like all over the world and be like, what the hell is Frontier? Why do they keep talking about Frontier? Yeah. So, Sean Oldsmith, is that why the Bible's so thick? The Bible could be thicker. So, well, yeah, I mean, that was, their own little books and stories and scrolls and what have you, pieced together over time. So, it grew. But again, it's been parsed out as well because there's other things that could be in there. So, and everybody's starting to take off. So, Beat 3 Aerospace is taking off. Yeah, it's just hitting midnight here. So, Mike, asking the librarian about the local historians and authors is always a good idea as well. So, yes, Candy, that is also a good idea as well, to find out who your local historians are. So, they may work at the local historical society, or they may not. They may freelance. They may have their own thing going on, but are still well known in the community as being a local historian. So I know when Shana and I have done research there in around the Kempsville area, Shana, I don't remember his name, but he's a great guy. He's a nice guy, and he's always there at Old Settlers Day, set up with a bunch of stuff, set up with stuff from the local historic society, old photographs and books and all of that. And so, very knowledgeable guy of the history of the area. So, definitely. And so, I guess that's something I haven't mentioned a lot in this, is also, your local historical society will have a lot of the information as well. So, and I know I mentioned it when I talked about the old photographs. So, they'll have that. They're very likely to have old maps too, old books, and a lot of other types of records there. So, definitely check out your local historical society as well, because they're also going to have some great information. So, Shauna's like, hold on, remember the name. All right. Meaningfully may have already mentioned, but ask your family members. Well, yeah, and that too. Anybody who's been around in the community for a while, older family members are always a fantastic resource. So, and Shauna did mention that at least older people in the community, definitely pick their brains. And Shauna, it's okay. Retzer is his last name. I can't remember his first name, but everybody's taking off. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Really do appreciate everybody joining the show tonight. It's I hope you learned something. I hope you got some ideas of how to do your own paranormal research and different tools that you can use that are out there for doing that research. Do apologize for the technical difficulties with Shauna, because I know she has a lot of great insight. Patrick with a $2 Canadian super chat. It says, Mike, I'm going to buy your books. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Patrick. And whenever you buy them, I hope you enjoy them. Emerson Retzer, there you go, from Shauna, the local history guy there. So, all right. So, next week we're going to cover that DNA topic that we mentioned last week when we were talking about reincarnation. So that'll be interesting. And $2 from BD Flint. Thank you, BD. Appreciate that. BD is also a new Deep Down the Rabbit Hole Patreon patron, so we do appreciate that. Tim is planning on buying a ghostie in a book or two. Fantastic. So yeah, the ghosties, and you can get the shirts and everything out there at hauntedroadmedia.com. Just go to the merch tab and that'll come right up. So the shirts will take you to the Spreadshirt site, which you'll have, well, what do we have, like 4 or 5 different variations out there of different styles. So we have, you know, this one, the rabbit hole shirt. We have This Is Witchy Shit. We have the Haunted Road Media shirt. And, well, we got ones with book covers on there because Vanessa wanted ones with book covers. So we have those out there as well. And yeah, I'd certainly be able to autograph them, Tim. I'd be willing to do that. So, and yes, Shay, we will do a take 2 on this. We will do a take 2 since Shana wasn't able to chime in so much, unfortunately. And yes, we will be on Tim's show tomorrow night. So, Tim, you want to go ahead and throw your information down there in the chat so people can find, because Shana and I will both be on there tomorrow night. And yeah, so while you do that, I'll go ahead and get to the shout outs. We need to start first with our Super Chat Superstars. So, Super Chat Superstars for this time was Tomic Nicholas, Bree Jones, Jen, Snaggletooth, and BD Flint. So, thank you very much, Super Chat Superstars. It is always greatly appreciated. Your support has been absolutely fantastic. And, you know, it's, you know, just amazing the way you guys have just had an outpouring lately. And we love you all. We absolutely do. So let's get to it. So down there in the chat, so chat Shananigator, Shauna, thank you very much, my love. Also, Donna Gorton, who did most of the shenanigating of the chat tonight because Shauna was on the show. So Donna Gorton, one of our Cheshire Cats, thank you very much. And yeah, don't forget to sign Patrick's book as well. I will. So there is Grizz, another one of our Deep Down the Rabbit Hole Patreon patrons, which are Tom, Grizz, B3 Aerospace, Zippy Davis, BD Flint, and Pamela Queen. I think I got y'all, right? Pamela Rainey, thank you very much. Pungai Fungi, thank you. Ether Shadow, thank you very much. Of course, Snaggletooth, Patrick, thank you very much. I know a lot of people have already taken off, so because it's just late. It's late. Andrew Cox, thank you. Sean Oldsmith, thank you very much from Australia. BD Flint, thank you once again. Candy Oren, thanks for hanging out for both shows. A lot of you hung out for both shows, so I do appreciate that. Shay Carroll, thank you very much. There's Zippy. There's Shauna, Tim. Diane Hilbert, thanks again. Really do appreciate it. Tom McNicholas, of course. What else do we have? And if I miss you, I do apologize. It's not intentional. It just is what it is. Because there have been a lot of people. It's hard to keep up with everything. Beat 3 Airspace, of course. Thank you. And I'm just going to scroll back down. Anybody else? And all right. Well, that is going to do it for tonight. Really do appreciate everybody come out, hanging out. I hope the information was helpful. Gave you some ideas on how to research paranormal history, haunted history. Either one. Yeah, then there's Tim's information. Tomorrow night, Mike and Shauna will be on the Secrets of the Unknown, 10 to 11 p.m. Eastern, Blog Talk Radio. So go ahead and throw the link down in there too, Tim, so they know where to go. And thank you down there in Periscope for the hearts. Tom McNicholas is down in there. I don't intentionally try to forget about Periscope, but it's down there. And all right, and yes, the Paracon. Before I go, Paracon June out in Alton, Illinois, at the Mineral Springs Hotel. So check it out on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Haunted Road Media, and come on out June 9th. So we're looking forward to seeing everybody. All right, so that'll do it. Everybody have a good night. Till next time.